Tonight we are talking about episode 712, Carnal Knowledge,
Mhm.
written by Tony Graffia, directed by Lisa Clark. And whoa, what a combo. I'm Courtney Williams. I'm the creator producer of Outlander Behind the Scenes. I'm a book reader and a show fan. I'm so happy to be here with my Outlander sisters talking about this episode tonight. We had a delay of a week, but we're here. I'm drinking some sparkling water. So this episode for me felt like a gift. It felt like a visit back to seasons 1 through half of 3. It's a standout for me. I think it's the best episode, not only of the season, but of many seasons, maybe. I felt like I was pulled into this episode and taken for a ride. I was laughing and crying, and I was just in it. And it's been a while for me. Usually I go in and out of them, but this one I was really pulled into. I couldn't wait to watch it again. And actually, when I went to go watch it critically, which is where I watch it for one time for just enjoyment. And then when I went back to watch it critically, I got pulled in again. I forgot what I was doing. I had to say, like, oh, wait a minute. I forgot to notice this and that because it was so good. On Carmen's scale, I give this thing 5 stars. It's a yes from me. I liked it.
My name is Antoinette, and you all know who I am already, so let's just get down to business. I'm drinking eggnog out of a red Solar cup because it may or may not have some liquor in it. Cheers. Yes, to the episode. Oh, Courtney, did you actually like the episode? I wasn't clear from what you were saying. Yeah, I thought this episode, when I saw that Tony wrote it, and then I saw we had back Lisa Clark, I said, okay, yeah. And it did not disappoint. I really, really liked the episode. There was not one thing in it that irked me. So I'm going to give it, 5 is a bit much. I'm giving it a 4.5. Not because there was anything drastically wrong, but I am just a contrarian like that. So 4.5, but I really liked it.
Okay, my name is Carmen Schmidt, and I write the Outlander Anatomy blog. I'm a book reader, and I enjoy the show. I like to approach the both from the perspective as a scientist and also as a teacher in the medical profession. And I like this episode very, very much. I would not give it 5 stars. I would give it 4.5, or maybe even a little bit more than 4.5, but I wouldn't give it 5 because I only give 5 when I think something is perfect, and I haven't seen anything yet that I thought was perfect. So for me, I'm talking about my opinion now, everybody who's listening. But I thought it was extremely well done. I thought it really had a lot of positives about it, and I liked it more. I've watched it 3 times now. And every time that I've watched it, I find myself smiling and enjoying it even more than I did the first time. I am drinking, like Antoinette, I am drinking eggnog tonight. I do have spiced rum in it and fresh ground nutmeg. And it is awesome. So if I don't go out on the floor, it'll be good luck for me.
That sounds amazing.
My nutmeg is finished, so I have to drink my eggnog sans nutmeg. I'm not happy.
Antoinette, kick us off with your favorite scene.
Oh gosh. I love the moment when William looked in the mirror and saw himself. You know, the anguish on his face was palpable. And then the transition from William to Jamie hitting Lord John Grey. So that flow from William to the Jamie hitting Lord John Grey, I thought was one of my favorite moments in the episode.
The punch.
Yeah.
William
Because it
punching the
followed
mirror.
William looking in the mirror and his anguish at not knowing who he really is. And then you see the two villains who have put him in this predicament, fisticuffs. So I thought that was brilliant. I like that.
My favorite scene was the very extended scene between Jamie and Claire. I felt like, yes. The whole thing was so well done. They were completely in character. It was almost directly from the book. There were some pieces I'm not sure were in the book that could have been a little bit adapted. I thought both of them were brilliant in that scene. I loved that. I don't know if that would be Lisa Clark, who had them changing rooms so that it could be an extended scene, but it wouldn't just go on and on, where you're just, there was movement. They had actual conflict, and it was believable, and it didn't have Claire saying one line and then stomping off. Like they actually worked together as a couple through this conflict, and there were, her joy at seeing him, and then Jamie talked to me instead of just getting mad. And and then Jamie, we have one viewer who has commented that they feel that Jamie is that since Matt and Meryl took the helm in season 5, that he's been kind of flat because he doesn't have any flaws. And I don't totally disagree with that, but I think that was like making up for all the contrived flaws that were done, starting with Boobgate in season 1 and going to, Claire getting a lot of his lines in season 2, blackmailing Fergus in season 3, marrying Leary, knowing that she tried to murder Claire, like all these kind of things that were not very Jamie-like and were not in the books. But I really appreciated that we saw Jamie's jealousy, which is a part of his character, and it could be considered a flaw. And then, just the rhythm of the scenes and the acting, and then when he he's really empathizing with her when she's like, I don't know what the name of what he gave me. I don't know what to call it, but he and she was like, I needed somebody, and he was like, and he obliged you, and he's so empathetic, and then he's like, did he bugger you? Perfect. Because that would be a man, that would be Jamie, that would be on the person's mind. But I thought that this is what he did, and so, and her face, that's like, he's understanding me, and then, oh my God,
disappointing.
It was brilliant. Anyway, I loved that scene. I thought that's the part that I felt like was a gift. I also felt that it was an Emmy moment for Sam. How, Antoinette, you were saying they always give Katrina her Emmy or award-winning moment. He actually got to have one of those moments in this scene, and that made me really happy. And it also felt a little bit, Tony Graffia wrote Faith, episode 207, and Metin Hussein directed that episode. And I remember when we were all like, why did they delete Sam's part, when of the 2-part conversation? And Ron said at the time, well, you can only make people cry for so long. And I asked Metin on Twitter, and he, was the director of the episode, and he said, I don't know why they cut it. It was the culmination of the whole episode, was that scene between the two of them. I never would have cut that. So this kind of felt like reparation or something for that. Yeah. So anyway, that scene was very meaningful to me.
I also felt that was really one of my favorite scenes too, but I won't elaborate on it because I think you've covered it very well. So I'll choose another scene that was really, I enjoyed very much. And that was the fight scene between Jamie and Lord John. I thought it was done extraordinarily well between these two men. I thought each showed their personality, and I just loved Lord John's responses to Jamie, how he played that. And Jamie's beating of him harkened back to Roger for me. I had to think about, what Roger got, and now Lord John just got something very similar to that. I mean, Jamie's not being very temperate here. He's being quite intemperate. And that is a side, that sort of impulsiveness of his personality that you were talking about. If you want to call them character flaws, they're more to me like they're characteristics of a person's personality. He usually keeps those under control quite well, but he does have his limits, and that, and they got pushed in this one. But I just thought Lord John's responses to him were just, and to Woodbine, I just loved it. I'll come back to some of my favorite lines are running in there, but I just thought, most of the dialogue was from the book. Tony followed it very well and faithfully. And this isn't the only place. There were many scenes. That scene with Jamie and Claire in the reunion was very much out of the book. And it worked in very well because Diana's writing is, we all know how fabulous it is. You have to be a really good personal writer yourself to override what she has written, and write something different, in my opinion. So that would be my favorite scene that I'd like to mention, is the one between Jamie, the extended one between Jamie and Lord John, even though it got interrupted by Claire William's visit to Claire. If you look back at the whole thing, it just really was impactful, let's say it that way. Poor John, he got most of the impact, but it was really, really terrific scene, I thought.
Question, since you know the book so well, did he bugger you in the book?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
okay,
he did.
Okay,
he did.
I wasn't sure about that.
I love how Sam delivered that.
Yes, he did say that to Claire. Did he bugger you?
Yeah.
I don't remember if she slaps him, but she certainly slapped him there.
Is that when she slapped him?
Yeah, in the book he did ask her that. I don't remember the slap, if he slapped him.
And did he say the part about that bloody Englishman bandaged me?
Yes.
In the books?
All of that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, such a good long book.
I'm telling you, it's just, anyway.
Sorry, I can't get off of that scene. Okay, Antoinette, what's your next favorite?
My next favorite would have been either one of the two that you all just discussed. Either the scene with Jamie and Claire, for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, Courtney, in terms of the fact that what stood out to me most about that scene is that the characters were drawn properly. We saw the actual Jamie from the book and Claire from the book, and not the arm folding shrew that sometimes she's written as. So I really, really appreciated that. And I was very thankful that they didn't try to stage it in the potting shed, because knowing how they botch stables and such, I was dreading them trying to do that in a potting shed. So I was very, very, very grateful that they used the device of moving from room to room. Excellent, brilliant. And I also love the scene with Lord John Gray. So my second favorite is a mishmash of those two.
Okay. So did it take place at Bertram's garden in the book?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Bertram's garden.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, that could have been a stable scene if they'd done that. So
Mm-hmm. And another thing, let me just quickly say before I forget, one of the things I like about the writing and this director is that a lot of scenes could be melodramatic and soap opery and over the top, and they were not.
Yeah.
Especially that long scene with Jamie and Claire could have been, but the restraint, the deftness with which the director moved them through those very emotional, you know, scenes and words and the conflict, it was just brilliant.
I think it reflected an emotional depth between them that we haven't seen before.
In a bit, yeah.
I mean, maybe ever, because their relationship is they have the longest relationship they've ever had at this point as two people. They've matured as much as you know what I mean? Like they can play more mature people than they could have in season 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wow, it was so good. My next favorite scene was every scene with William, with Charles Vandervaart, but I'll pick one, which was the lovemaking scene, the whole boudoir scene between him and Jane. I thought, first of all, the casting for Jane was great.
Yeah.
And I thought their chemistry was amazing. Charles was 21 when he filmed that, playing a 19-year-old. And man, that kid can act. I was just so impressed with his ability to bring out these nuances and colors of William. Like I like Charles's William better than book William, and that's very rare for me. Because I feel like he's brought him to life in a way that, you know, when I read William, it's not that I don't like him, but I didn't feel as much compassion for him in the book as I did for Charles as William in the show. And he's the one that really honestly pulled me in, and I would just be, you know, wow, just this is amazing. His facial expressions, all of the, you know, you could just really see that he was this young man really struggling to hold on to something. And you know, and then Jane is, you know, she's not going to have like great relationship skills with him and be like, well, what I'm hearing you say is you've lost your honor. No, she's like, the only thing I know to do is to just give this guy is sex and my body and me and comfort in that kind of a way. And so, you know, he talks and then she's just like kiss, and then he talks and then she's like, now we're gonna do that. You know, I don't know. I just thought that scene was so well done. And I was so glad they didn't do some, you know, intimacy coordinator version of it. You know, that was very cleaned up, you know. It was tastefully done, but it was, you know, they were in a brothel, they're naked, they're having sex. It's, you know, anyway. Yeah.
It wasn't gratuitous, I thought.
No.
Not at all. I thought it was, if that's what you were implying, that it could have been.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I think.
Yeah.
Well, my next favorite one is the whole scene with William on the road helping the people who are escaping Philadelphia, and Rachel and Ian come up, what transpired between them, and then the look on on Ian's face when he sees Jamie right up was wonderful to me. I just thought it was extraordinarily well done. But what I've found really interesting in that scene between the four of them is that nobody overpowered anybody else. Everybody held their own. Now, that's not very easy to do in acting, I don't think. Very often, you'll see a scene with multiple people and somebody will be way overpowering the group, or somebody will be way underperforming the group. And I felt every one of the four of them held their own in that one. They were able to get across the dilemma that William was facing, the anger and the betrayal that he felt because he has this imaginary, well, for him, maybe not imaginary, but he has this clear affection for Rachel that she doesn't share, and he hasn't realized that. He's completely unaware, that her heart belongs to Ian. It doesn't belong to him. And then for Jamie to come up and, it's a rather, if you think back in the book, and I will mention that Written in My Own Heart's Blood is my favorite out of all of the books that she's written. It's my very favorite. But this is a prolonged scene. It really lasts a long time. And I think Tonya did a really great job of picking out the essential elements that each actor needed to get across from their point of view and carry it, put it on the screen for us to understand completely what the dilemma was between these people. So I think that was a really good scene. Next to Lord John and Jamie, this was my next favorite.
Well, y'all keep stealing my bloody scenes. Well, I wouldn't say that the boudoir scene was one of my favorites, but I do agree with you, Courtney, that the casting for Jane Pocock was brilliant. I hope we see a lot more of her. That was great. And as for the actual sex scene, yeah, well, I like the fact that I think the intimacy coordinator was involved in this because they didn't show her breast, the camera angles and the way his hand was placed. And I, for one, and the hair, I, for one, appreciated that because I do think that a lot of sex scenes and a lot of these shows have become, just too over the top, and it's a distraction. But the one thing I did notice was that she was a bit high up.
Wait, well, okay, we're gonna bring that up with medical anatomical. So
just
save that.
Jocasta and Murta.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're gonna come back to that.
Her right hip.
Yeah.
Okay, so my other favorite one would have had to have been that same confrontation on the road with William and Ian and Rachel, and the realization dawning on William when Rachel says we're betrothed. I think Charles was excellent throughout. Excellent throughout. And I think I agree with you, Courtney. He brings a level of vulnerability that Book William almost seems like a sociopath sometimes with his extreme reactions.
Yeah.
Book William sometimes you just want to slap him upside the head. But I know that he's doing and saying the same things that Book Williams says, but the actor is bringing an element to it that makes him more sympathetic and makes you more understanding of the anguish. Because I think in the book, we saw the outward manifestations of the anguish with, his reactions, his anger, his blah, blah, blah. But I think in the portrayal in the show, we are seeing the inner anguish, which explains all the outlandish behavior. And so the outlandish behavior is not so off-putting. So yeah. I really loved his entire portrayal of William in this episode. That might change as William does some more outrageous things, so we'll see.
I just think he pulled him off, like getting like, oh bloody hell, and kissing Rachel, in lesser hands that could have just been like, oh what, come on. And just even his facials when he's on the horse and he tells him to let go of Ian, and then he and Rachel are looking at each other and he's looking abashed and Rachel's giving him the evil eye. I mean, that you just see him being this like young man who is just completely, his circuits have been fried.
Yeah. His world.
Yeah. And
that he knew is gone.
And he's just grabbing at stuff and, using his physical body but just suffering, and that all came across.
Yeah. And my other favorite scene while we're talking was with him, William and Jamie. That little short scene where he has him up against the tree. You could actually see, it took me back to young Jamie and, William's expressions and his body language and everything. You could see some of that impulsiveness and hot-headedness of young Jamie. So I thought
young
that
Jamie and Dougal kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. So I like that. I really did. I thought, anyway, we'll get back to that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I thought that the tiny scene between, like you said, Carmen, when Ian sees Jamie and realizes he's alive, I mean, that's a really short scene, but his face showed everything. I thought that scene just of Ian and the realization was just amazing. I thought it was really great.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll make this really short because it'll come up again, but I really liked the diagnosis scene with Denzel and Lord John. I thought it was really fun, and well, not for Lord John, but I mean, it was fun for me to see it. I like Denzel's, I like the actor portraying him. Both he and Izzy are just terrific as the hunters. I think they were perfectly cast. Yeah. And I like pretty much everything he's in, even though there's not very much. He does a great job of convincing me that he's a Quaker physician who's trying to do something different than what his congregation wants him to, or his association wants him to be doing, even though they were fighting Quakers. But anyway, I really liked that scene. I thought it was, and I'll tell you why later.
Okay. Antoinette, let's go on to what worked for you.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, I think the pacing of the episode was very, very good. There was no lagging. Everything just felt as if it happened in the right sequence. So the whole pacing of the show really, really worked. Of this episode really worked for me. Well, I mean, overall, I thought the writing was really excellent. So, and then that set up everything else. So, the writing, that has to be one of the top things that really, really worked for me in this episode.
Everything in this episode worked for me, pretty much. But just a couple of things that I haven't mentioned. Let's see. And you said this, Antoinette, but both the Jamie and Clara characters worked for me because they were in character. And that is just like,
Hmm.
The ending worked for me. And if you guys remember, it's Lord John escaping, and then there's a gunshot, like a flash, and that's it. That was a great ending.
Oh, hold on. Let me just, as you say that, I love the fact that they juxtapose the makeup sex with Jamie and Claire with Lord John escaping. I thought that was just brilliant. That really worked for me. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't really
Yeah, because
consciously think of
they
that.
kept flashing back between them in that room and
Why
Lord
did
John.
it work for you? Why did that work for you?
Yeah.
It just seemed to be very, very clever because they are in the throes of making up, and Lord John is fighting for his life. And so the whole sort of unfairness of it with regard to what happens to Lord John was just, I thought, brilliantly depicted when they did that.
And they're no less, they're in his house.
Yeah.
His cozy house.
You know, without saying, oh, poor Lord John, oh, poor Lord John.
Well, it certainly is two different
Poor Lord John, dang.
What were you saying, Carmen?
I said it certainly is two different types of climaxes there between. Well, there were a lot of things that worked for me. Not everything, but most everything. One of the things that I really enjoyed in this episode is the scenery that they showed. That lane that Jamie was trotting with his horse, that was one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen in my life. It was perfect. And I was just so impressed with that. Then there was a scene with foggy morning. There were mountains, there were trees. I just thought the scenery was really lovely. And it added in, there have been a few times when it just seemed like it was stuck in for no purpose. Yeah. But I didn't feel that about this episode. It just felt like it was a reminder to the viewer of the setting of this story, and the impact of nature on these people and their lives, and their associations with each other, their relationships with each other. I just thought that was a lovely addition. It was a character in and of itself, I should say.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I agree. That little trail he's trotting down, I don't know how much horse riding you've done, but that looked like a really nice trail. I mean,
I've done enough to know what that would feel like.
With the ground just a little bit damp, but not wet. And you got enough space, but you have coverage. Yeah, that would have been nice. He wasn't in a very good mood when he was riding down that, but the reunion talk between Jamie and Claire was so very, very important. But one of the things that really came across through both of them is that it was Lord John that stopped the emotional hemorrhage for both of them. He bandaged them up and he propped them up so that they could move forward. Yeah. Wounded as they were, they could still move forward. And I think that's what Jamie put it in a nutshell when he said that bloody Englishman, he bandaged me with his friendship. And, he bandaged Claire with his love for Jamie. And he loves her too, I think, in his own way. He doesn't, he doesn't desire her as a woman, but I think he has a lot of respect and love for her as a person. He admires her intellect and her abilities, and which are marvelous, especially in that time. So I want to point that out. Yeah. I mean, Lord John Grey in the book comes from a very loving family.
Yes.
You know, they have their quirks, but he has that experience of family showing up for him showing up for family. And I think he sees Claire and Jamie as part of his extended family,
Mhm.
I agree.
especially with William in the picture.
I agree.
I will just reiterate what Antoinette said at her first set of comments, or very close to that. The segue between William viewing himself in the mirror and then reaching back and punching at it, and then Jamie punching Lord John, that was a brilliant piece of optical eye candy to me. That's not giving it the right word because it makes it seem frivolous, and it wasn't at all. But it was just a brilliant segue between those two things. And I thought William looking at himself in his mirror, he's going through an identity crisis.
Yep.
And if we've ever been through one, and most of us have at some point in time, it is really an unsettling time in your life. And I thought that little thing. Now that was, I think, Tony's, or maybe Clark and Tony, I don't know, but I don't remember that in the book per se. But it was just really a great part of this episode.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. And I thought the other thing that worked was William stomping down the stairs and trashing everything. They didn't show it in the last episode, and I thought, oh, because it's too hard or whatever. But they did it. I think the timing was a little bit different.
Different.
Yeah,
was.
but
in
it
the
totally
book, he does
worked.
it right after after Jamie and Lord John escape. He starts speeding up the stairway on his way down. By the way, I did check, and that because I thought, oh, that basin stand weren't there when Claire came walking down the stairs, but it was. I checked on it in the episode before, and it was there.
I thought that William did a great job in that scene. Very believable. It wasn't, and that's probably harder to pull off than we would think.
Yeah, without it looking, without it being on, melodramatic and performative. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. His anguish was real. His anger was palpable, and that is down to the skill of the actor, because the writer and director can only do so much. But if you don't have it in you for them to pull it out of you,
he's got it.
One of my favorite scenes, which I wrote down and forgot to say, was the was the scene with Claire and William. That was a really good scene. I think that is one of the scenes that made me start to feel for William a lot more than I had up to that point. That was a gem of a little scene.
Yeah, that was beautifully done by both of them. And again, like there's the interplay between them, and then with William, or Charles kind of pulling himself in and then letting his emotion out, and he has so much restraint for such a young actor, I think. Like a kind of a Lauren Lyle type.
He's well trained, but he also has good instincts, and you can see that.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that when I said intimacy coordinator, that was shorthand for something that's only in my head. I think it's great that there's an intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it has improved. I think because you see my issue with how I mean everybody raved out Outlander, did sex scenes and realistic blah 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 blah. Yeah, fine. I give them kudos for that. But I think at some point it tipped over into becoming gratuitous and exploitative.
Well, the
I,
Roger and
especially the Roger and
Bree,
Brianna,
those were
no,
uncomfortable to
very much so.
watch, you know.
And I mean, you remember the one with Spielers and the on the boat? You know, I'm saying it's like,
You
you
mean
know,
the
everybody
prostitute?
got to get their bum out. So let Spielers get his bum out too. I just, you know, so
Yeah.
I'm really seeing the difference. And I, for one, prudish, call me prudish. I really appreciate it because I don't like the fact that some of these young actors might have been exploited.
No, that, and I think they definitely were. I think Sam definitely was in the scenes actually with Blackjack, based on
And I also
his,
think Katrina was as well.
yeah,
You
probably.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely. Because I think because of her background being a model, I think she was more comfortable with, you know, with her body and, you know, nudity and that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
still, I think they took advantage of her comfort level to push the boundaries further than they needed to be pushed.
Yeah. Well, so
You know?
when I said that, I'll just go ahead and say right now, I thought the sex scene with Jamie and Claire was, it's not that I wanted to like more skin or any of that stuff. It was just kind of, I don't know, lacking something for me.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I meant by intimacy coordinator. And they may
Okay.
be like, I don't want to do any sex scenes unless I have all my clothes on and we're literally just like thrusting and that's it. I mean, that may be them, but I don't know, because that the one in the book in the Bertram Garden is definitely uh way more beautiful than what they did on Lord John's table. And at the end of such a gorgeous emotional exchange, I just felt it was like the stable scene almost, in terms of, I mean, it wasn't that like
Wasn't
fake.
that bad.
It wasn't that faked, but it just, I don't know, something, it was lacking something for me. So that's what I meant when I said I was glad that at least they didn't have, you know, young William and his prostitute with all their clothes on, you know, just whatever. I don't know. Um, yeah.
I didn't mind that scene.
No.
No, I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was in keeping with where they were coming from emotionally. And I didn't expect some tender, long drawn out. That's not where they were emotionally. And so how they reconnected, I thought was in keeping with where they were at that moment in time, you
Okay.
know. So I didn't mind it at all.
What do you think, Carmen?
No, I didn't care for it either. I agree with you, Courtney. It was a letdown, and it wasn't because they weren't. It wasn't because they had clothes on. It wasn't that, but it was, you know, think of what they've just been through, and it just didn't have the passion to it that I felt like it should have. Um, I, I, you know, that scene that Diana wrote on the work table of the potting shed. I mean, that would have been hard to create for this show. So I
Yeah.
understand why they didn't do that. But Lord John's dining room table, no, I don't
Yeah.
think they, and the windows were uncovered, the lower half of them. And, you know, even though it was fairly dark in the room, if you've ever been on the outside at night looking through windows into a room that is even slightly more lighted than where you are, you can see quite a bit. And I can't see them doing that. And I think that was just a poor choice, the dining room table.
It was
No.
also just they were so far away from each other. that's kind of what it was for me. I feel like there would have been more, I don't know, just like,
I didn't
Yeah,
get the
well,
emotional connection between them,
yeah, there
I
would
guess.
have been
well,
more
One.
proximity, more emotional
Yeah.
connection instead of just like, I really need to have an orgasm. Come on.
I don't think, well, I interpreted it a bit different because yes, they're reconnecting, but there's still a lot of residual anger and resentment on Jamie's part. And so,
And Claire's.
and Claire's as well.
Yeah.
And so I did not expect, um, the usual with their theme and all this. No, that's why I thought the dining room table might have been a poor choice, but how the scene played out in terms of the kind of sex that they had,
Yeah.
I thought was appropriate for where, because this is not a resolution of that, because this is something that comes up, that continues to affect their relationship. So I would not expect a grand denouement
Yeah.
at this point. It
Yeah,
would have
that's
been too
fair.
soon, and that would have been unrealistic, in my view, for everything to just melt away and then melt into each other. Yes, they are reconnecting because that is their love language.
Right.
Their physicality is is a major part of their relationship. So in terms of starting the healing of the
Yeah.
relationship, that is where they naturally would start. But it's
Yeah.
just a start.
Yeah, and I could see it being also Jamie like sort of reclaiming in a little bit of a animalistic way.
Exactly. Are you my wife?
That was such a good. Okay, so Carmen, least favorite scene for you.
I did not care for Harkness. I think he was miscast, honestly. His words were right out of the book, so they were coarse, and nasty, talking about the buggery of a girl and what you're going to do and what she's going to do to you and how to get her to do it, and with great detail to his companions in front of Jane and other girls. It wasn't that, because I read it, but what it was to me is that he was physically and verbally, his voice too refined for the kind of character that he's playing. I would have expected him to be a much more coarse. He is in the book a much more coarse man, and much more less of a gentleman. His words were said like a gentleman, even though the words weren't the words of a gentleman. They were said as if he were a gentleman, and he's not in the book. And so I didn't care for the way that scene worked out. It's not I don't want to make a big deal out of it because it wasn't a huge thing, but I felt like it was a contender for being my least favorite, mostly
And
because of him.
Harkness in the book, so he's a captain in the army or whatever. Isn't that an officer?
Yes.
But not
Yeah,
necessarily, but he was so most officers are gentlemen.
exactly. You got to buy a commission. It's
Yeah.
not anything about rising up the ranks in the British Army. If you are a captain, right, you have to buy a commission to become a captain. So if you enlist as a regular person, you can't rise up the ranks to be an officer. And so I thought that the fact that these really horrible, disgusting words were coming out of the mouth of somebody who delivered them as if he was talking about, a game of croquet and, accompanied by tea and crumpets. I thought that was very well done.
No,
Me
I
too.
didn't. Mostly because of him. I thought he was miscast.
Okay.
I see. I agree with Antoinette. I thought he was so creepy, and he gave me Blackjack vibes, Blackjack
And
Randall vibes.
he also gave me a little bit of Bonnet vibes as well.
Yeah,
That
just
that
definite
that's
Bonnet.
slimy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think I remember that he was more crass, kind of like scat, like kind of what's the word? Like he's scowled out his words, or kind of, I don't remember.
Yeah, I but when you read the book, for those who do, you get a mental image often of the character that is being
Yeah.
described to you. And Diana was quite thorough, in my opinion, about her description of Harkness. He has to be a really bad guy for what's coming down the pike, right?
Ugh. Yeah.
And he doesn't come across that horribly in this scene. That's
Yeah.
why part of what I am saying. His words, yes, what he was saying was gross. And showed his disdain for those women and what they had to do in order to take care of themselves. But it wasn't the same level of cruelty to me, and that I think he has to display, because of, if the story goes the way the book goes, there's some things coming down the pike that are going to be harder for me to buy because of his casting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
That's just
But
for me. I'm only
gave me
describing, how it strikes me.
Really, the only one that I had in there was the George Washington scene, and it was well done, but the political intrigue is always my least favorite of the books. I don't know, that part doesn't do anything for me.
I didn't like it either, Courtney, but for a different reason. It's because they took the punch out of it by having him meet him in Wilmington when Claire did the surgery on his clerk or whatever he was. I don't remember what position he had, but they met then. And if they hadn't done that, this could have been a really impactful scene. I mean, George Washington, and he steps up and makes him a brigadier general. So I think that was a loss for the impact that this could have had.
Man, that Morgan's Rifles guy is bigger than Jamie. He is a huge dude.
I was happy to see him again. He made me smile.
He is a handsome dude.
He is.
I thought it felt like a filler. It felt like filler. It felt like filler. I didn't see the point of it.
Well, I think we have to find out how he becomes rises to the rank that he does. So that part made sense to me. I just felt that it would have been more dramatic if they hadn't thrown in them meeting, back in season 4.
Or maybe it's the fact that I think Claire has told Jamie about Washington and who he is and who he will become and that kind of thing. I would have thought that Jamie would have been a little bit more starstruck, overawed, and made it, I don't know, it just felt like,
filler.
I didn't like that. That for me was a letdown.
Or let's go to what didn't work, Antoinette.
Well, the positioning of Jane in the sex scene with William, it just made me laugh. Because it, brought me back to Myrta and Jocasta. So,
that's the worst one ever.
When Myrtle made love to Jocasta's hip.
Her hip joint.
So that
Carmen. Since that's coming up, what did you think of that positioning? I noticed it too. Did you notice
No,
it?
it was, I'm sure that they do it that well. It's probably the intimacy coordinator that suggests that, honest. I wouldn't be surprised.
That has him sit up on his belly button?
To shift her forward so that it's not quite as intimate as it would be if she was
she's actually
anatomically in contact with that part of his body. I mean,
especially being a 21-year-old, guy, like that'd be kind of hard.
Yeah. So to speak.
Pun very much intended.
I didn't even mean to say that.
But that's why it's so good.
It's hot. Well, I mean, the
one more thing about that. She's like, reaching under his hand, his blanket, and he's like, unhand me. How does she get his pants down? Like
I was gonna say, he got under the covers with his pants on, and
well, I mean, the flies, maybe she just worked her way in through the flies. It's not a zipper or anything. The flies are
they're buttoned.
So she could have worn. I'm sorry.
They were buttoned.
They were buttoned. Yeah. She could easily have just slipped off.
But I wondered about that too, because
unbuttoned his buttons and then made love to his belly button.
Well, there's remember the little lean-to scene when Jamie and Claire get up, where the first time on the ridge and they look out over at their future property and everything, and they make love in the tent. She's too high on him also.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So there's been other places in the series where I've seen that thing happen. And I think it's just the preservation of privacy between them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, another thing that didn't work for me was I don't know if you guys saw when Lord John Grey and Jamie are riding away on their horses. I don't know what Sam's doing, but he's doing that thing that people, when they pump their horses, like, go faster. And I mean, at this stage, I don't think Jamie would be riding like that, but that definitely, I was like, what?
I noticed that and thought that Lord John was riding better than Jamie, which I'm not sure he does ride better than Jamie, but.
And then when it switched, they had stunt riders or whatever, people who were not doing that. But I definitely that distracted me from what was going on. I also just will mention, and then go to you, Carmen. I thought they should have taken out the line, "How long since you've eaten?" when Claire asked Jamie that, because he's in his Poppin' J outfit that he came off of the 6-week boat thing. During their long thing, she says, "How long since you've eaten?" And I mean, he looks like perfectly, he doesn't look starving. He looks very well coiffed and dressed. It seemed incongruous to leave that in there. If you were going to have him all straggly and looking, like he's been through an ordeal, either have him look like that and leave it in, or have him look like he looked and leave it out. That's how I felt about it.
I got you. I hear you.
So one of the things that didn't work for me is when Ian says to William, "Oh, so you know." And William says, "Yes, I bloody know, who my father is, blah, blah, blah." And he says to Rachel, "Did you know?" And she said, "Well, there is a certain resemblance." No, there isn't. I don't think they look anything alike at all. He looks like Geneva, his mother, Dunsany, William looks quite a bit like her, but other than his size, he doesn't look to me anything like Sam. So if I saw him or was around him, I would never put that together that, oh yeah, he's probably father and son. So that might have been better left out.
Left out, yeah.
I missed quite a few people in this episode who play important part in the book. The Hardmans were not there. Jenny was not there. Hal was not there. Fergus and Marsley were not there. And which segues into a question I have, and that is, how did Jamie know that Claire was going to be at Lord John's house? Because he finds out in the book when he goes to the print shop and they tell him, well, you know, she's married to Lord John and they're living on Chestnut Street. And there's nobody to tell him that here that I know of. So how did he know to go there to find her? It's not explained. Well, I remember.
Well, he knew that Lord John's house was at Chestnut Street because, because he had written to Claire.
Oh, that's how he knew. Right, because she didn't go back to work on Henry Christian.
Yeah, she went to
work on Lord John's nephew.
Lord John's nephew.
So that's right. That's right.
So he would have immediately thought that's where she'd be. And he knew where it was because of the letter that John had written.
Exactly. You are correct. I withdraw my concern about that.
It's too late. You've already
I'm a marked woman.
That's right.
You have to wear a C on your chest.
I will say that for me, Charles bares his teeth a little bit too much when he's angry. He goes like that. I would like for him to do a little less of that. It's nothing, you know. And I mean, I'm really dragging the bottom.
You are my spirit animal, because that is the only thing that I would have given me a little bit of pause. He's much too teethy.
Yes.
You know, and so that's the only thing that, I mean, as he matures as an actor, I'm sure he will learn to have much more control over his face. And, you know, but those teeth, there are times when it was very distracting.
He's got gorgeous teeth.
And that's the thing too. They're not 18th century British teeth at all.
Yeah.
They're not even 20%. I'm sorry, that was low. I'm going to get into trouble. I'll blame it on the rum in the drink.
Yes. Blame it on the alcohol.
I'm going to say that since you brought up William's teeth, I will bring up, I felt that David played Lord John Grey a little bit, instead of coming across as facetious, he came across as insolent, sort of as pouty. Like I didn't like that, instead of, like, I felt like Lord John Grey in the book is more like, well, if that's the way you want to, you know,
more fatalistic.
Yeah, and David plays, you know, he always has, where he says, I don't something or other, but it came off as almost like pouty or something. I don't know how to, do you know what I'm talking about? Just the rhythm of how he would speak. I don't know, just a couple times where I would be like, what's he trying to do there?
I think he felt liberated. Honestly, I think he was getting joy out of the fact that he got under Jamie's skin.
Okay, is that what,
a little bit of power? Instead, it's always been Jamie that he has, you know, there's been the more powerful in the relationship. And this situation gave Lord John a little bit more power this time, and I think he was enjoying it.
But I'm talking about even in the scenes with the guy in the camp, the that he knows from England.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being like, well, the last time I saw you, it was more like, and the last time I saw you was at the
Well,
hotel.
Well, he
You know
was
what I
putting
mean?
him down because
yeah,
he
I
was a
know,
turncoat.
but the way David played it was more kind of
I,
like, no, 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 no. I don't know. It
I,
was different for me than how I
mm,
pictured it.
well, I can see why you're saying that, but I think, I mean, for me, it was in keeping with how he was generally experiencing this situation. Um, I think he was having an out of body experience, and
Yeah.
he was trying to rationalize everything. And I think he fell back into his persona. Because remember, he kept insisting that they call him Lord John, or,
Yeah.
Lord John. And, he kept insisting on that. And so I felt that it was part of him trying to gather back up himself
Well,
after this whole
and not
shattering.
it's sort of a false
Exactly. Like a false
um
bravado.
yeah,
That
okay.
can come off as being flippant. But if
Uh-huh.
you understand emotionally where he is, then that it makes a little bit more sense because of how people react differently to trauma. And I can
Right.
understand him drawing up himself into his Lord John persona. That's what
But
I thought.
not really having the teeth to do it because he's very wounded and
Mhm.
That's how it
screwed
came across
up.
to me. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got it.
I'm jumping
I
up every
buy
second
that.
because I'm making a cup of tea.
Okay. We're
Because
gonna go on to things I noticed, so you jump in when you come back.
Well, one of the things that I noticed is that I said I really liked the diagnosis scene. So this is one of the things I noticed in the diagnosis scene. I like the interaction between Denzel and Lord John. But when Denzel gets his magnifying glass out and looks at the eye, and he said there's bleeding on the surface of the eye, there's redness on the inside of the lid. Lord John's eye is shut.
I saw that too, and I thought maybe there's just a little crack
Well,
that's
after he
showing
takes
some
it
eye.
away and leans back, I could see just a little slit, but you can't see the underside of the lid in that kind of a situation. So I thought maybe they could have done a little bit better about the portrayal of that. But it's a minor thing. I'm really really raking the barrel on this. When Lord John is in the tent with Watson Smith, Colonel Smith, I wondered if maybe they had been lovers. His uh,
Oh.
his familiarity that Lord John is expressing to him in this kind of almost coquettish manner just made me wonder if maybe they hadn't had a ta-ta-ta at some point in time because of the way that Lord John behaved to him, which would explain Lord John's sort of odd behavior and could also add to sort of the odd behavior that he had then. And then the other thing is that in the scene with Jane, she said, "Oh, that water is for your injured hand, not your cock." And I meant that, for your injured hand, not your cock. But out on the street, she was rubbing his hands. They didn't look injured to me after he had beaten, punched and kicked and hit things, as he was coming down the stairway. Could you see any injury on them? I
I
didn't
thought he
see
did
anything.
have his knuckles were kind of bloody.
You did? Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Surely they wouldn't. I mean, you're probably right, because surely they wouldn't overlook that.
no, because I did notice that his knuckles were scraped.
Was it
Oh, you did? I
after?
couldn't
Yeah,
see
Was
it.
it when he was with Jane?
it was when I noticed that when he was with Jane.
Okay.
Okay.
And I said,
I think
oh,
I noticed that too.
I said, that's an, they remembered to show because they had just had the altercation with the objects
Yeah.
on the stairs. And then for him
and the
not
mirror
to have the mirror. Remember, he flung things, and then for him not to have any bruising or anything on his knuckles would not have played correctly. So I did notice that.
Good.
Well, and this isn't even from this episode, but I noticed that when she said, "You ruined my best dress," was that from this episode? Now I'm getting all confused.
Yes, it was from this episode.
Okay. She actually did have a wine stain on her dress, because I rewinded to look at that, because rewound, whatever it is. Because I didn't see it at first, but there's like a big red. Anyway.
I couldn't see it.
Yeah,
but again, I'm looking on an iPad. It's a really small screen.
I noticed that there was no foreplay for anyone.
Not really.
Yep. And I noticed that Jamie's a bastard, and so is William.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie's a bastard?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lord Lovett is his dad.
Remember,
no, Jamie's.
Sorry, Jamie's the son of a bastard. Sorry. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're correct. Jamie is not a bastard.
Brian was the bastard, not Jamie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got you.
I misspoke.
Okay. What things are we on? Things that I noticed?
I retract my concern. No. I rethink my comment.
Yeah. Things I
noticed.
Okay. That's where we are. Excuse me. I'm dunking my biscuit in my tea. Hold on.
Go for it.
Is it just me, or did David look very pale in the episode? He looked very, very pale.
He looked pale in the last one.
The very washed out, pale, almost pasty white.
Well, I think he's very light skinned.
Yeah, but he looked extra pale. He almost looked like a vampire. That pale face.
Well, after he's got a major injury, so that would explain some of the paleness. He probably has a bit of shock going on.
And why doesn't his hair have any hint of gray? Everybody else is graying and all this, but his hair is black as a raven's wing.
He's got good genes.
What's up with that?
And he was blonde in the book too.
Yes.
Exactly. So everybody else is aging. Claire's hair is almost white. Jamie is turning into a blonde, which is apparently what happens to redheads when they get older. But
I can confirm that.
But John Gray's hair is still as black as a raven's wing. That's from Jane Eyre.
What?
Yeah. She described somebody's hair.
Oh, Jane Eyre. They said that's from Jamie, and I was like,
No, Jane Eyre, my favorite book that I read at least once a year, that I've been reading at least once a year for the past 30 years. Anywho, did anybody see the same thing about the mist rising from the scenery, like the same thing that we had in Scotland, in America, with the mist rising up from the forest or wherever it was? I did notice that. I still like that. But America, well, quote unquote, America doesn't play as much of a character in the show as Scotland does. But I did notice that. Yeah, these notes are, as we say in Jamaica, humbugging me.
Hambugging?
Humbugging. Getting in the way.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved how Ian came to Jamie's defense in the scene with William. That relationship is just still enduring and so strong and so real. I always love to see those little glimpses of that relationship.
I noticed that in the scene with George Washington, there's actually freezing rain or snow blowing into the window. in that scene, and steam coming out of their mouths. So they were in some real outside, I don't know, like barn or something, shooting that scene, and it must have been really cold. The guy who played Smith, I thought did a good job, I guess. And I noticed that the soldier standing, listening to Harkness, was, going like, and then he was like, he was disgusted by what he was saying, but he was playing along.
And I found what I noticed.
Yeah.
Jamie's boots were dirty. For once.
Yay.
Probably because they were in a real barn.
Jamie's boots were dirty. And I also noticed
thank you for pointing that out.
We stayed in one time. There was no jumping back and forth, which I thought was necessary for all the heavy stuff that was going to happen in this episode. They didn't need to dilute it by going back and forth in time.
Yeah, and I think that Ron used to think they needed to give the audience relief from that stuff, but they don't know Outlander audiences.
Exactly.
If that's the thought. Are you kidding?
We've read the damn books.
Hundreds of pages of misery before we get any relief.
We're used to it.
One of the things is that Jane had really beautiful bustiers. I don't know if you noticed hers, but oh my gosh, they were beautiful, embroidered type material that they were made out of. Lovely colors and really lovely cuts on them. I thought they were quite beautiful. Another thing that I noticed is when Washington appoints Jamie as a brigadier general, there's a drum tattoo that starts playing in the background after just starts at that particular moment, which sort of enhances the importance of that appointment.
I missed that.
When there's a scene in the camp when I think it's when it might be when Denzel is approaching Lord John. It shows the roof of the tent and the leaves are on it. It's really beautiful. You can see the shadows of the leaves that have fallen on the tent, the light coming through, and it was really quite stunning. And maybe that's why they put it in, because it doesn't go anywhere except just to show you the beauty of that particular thing. Also, I realized that William and Bree were just about the same age when they found out their paternity, who the true paternity was of their father. They're both right around 21 years old when they found out. And I thought that was really interesting. I think that's probably by accident, but it is one of those happy coincidences that happens a lot in the Outlander books.
I think Bree found out when she was 19. And I think William is 19 in this.
I'm sorry, 19. I said I meant 19. He's 21
Charles
now.
was 21.
Yeah, they were both right about 19. You're right.
Yeah.
So I noticed that when Lord John is trying to escape and he's out in the woods, they've got dogs tracking him. That is not a good thing. Something has to happen to those dogs because they'll get him. He won't be able to escape that unless he finds some kind of refuge or way of hiding his tracks. So that wasn't in the book, but I thought that was kind of scary when I heard them starting to bay. And then did you notice how much physical violence there was in this episode? A lot of punches and slaps, from Claire and Rachel's slap. There's many punches by Jamie to Lord John. There's just really quite a bit of that in this particular episode. So I just wanted to mention that was something I noticed too. And then you guys have covered quite a bit of the things that I had noticed before.
Well,
I mean,
I
we've
didn't.
already covered them.
I didn't mind the slaps in this episode.
Oh, I didn't mind them either. I'm just
Yeah.
commenting on there was quite a few.
There were quite a few. Well, it's just me that's hung up on accents. But even though I love the chemistry and stuff between Arabella and William, I found her accent to be a little bit too cultured because she's Jane Pocock. That Pocock is not the name of somebody who comes from a family where she would speak like how she speaks. And I'm thinking, okay, so she was a fancy piece. So maybe the madame at the brothel, had her trained and altered the way she spoke so that she could, sell her for higher amounts because she doesn't sound like how she's supposed to sound with a surname like Pocock. So I did notice that.
Her speech was pretty refined and elegant.
So this is a little bit of a spoiler, but I noticed that she has curly hair like Claire. And there's, we don't know anything definitive about that, but there's later, Claire and Jamie wonder about could Faith have survived and be the mother of Fanny and Jane? So that just makes me wonder if they have a different parentage than, because didn't they lose their parents coming over on a boat?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know anything about the surname Pocock, but maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something more to the story there.
Well, maybe maybe my saying her name was a spoiler because I don't think she's called Pocock in this episode. We eventually learned that about her. But so even without knowing that, for her to be in a brothel and to speak the way she speaks is incongruous.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Carmen, when you're ready, medical and anatomical.
Okay, well, of course, the obvious medical anatomical is Lord John's eye, and kudos to the makeup because that was really an effective illustration of the kind of eye injury which he has sustained. They look very, very much like the makeup that was used, so that was very good. He has Denzel's assessment of him says that he believes that he has a fracture of his orbit. So he's talking about the bony socket that his eye sits in. And the floor of that socket and the nasal side of it, the bones are very thin. You can, especially the nasal side, you can actually break them with your finger. They're so thin. The rest of it, the roof and the outer surface, and the back, those are very strong bone, and that's not the case. The reason I tell you this is because the internal pressure of an eyeball is so high because it's filled with fluid that it takes something like over 130 pounds per square inch of pressure to burst an eyeball. It's very hard to do. So sometimes if in a car accident or a strike to the eye with a ball or something like that, it will burst the eyeball. But that is not what usually happens. What usually happens is that the bones break to relieve the pressure, and the floor is the one that breaks more than the nasal side, even though the nasal side is thinnest. And so that's what's happened here. And the reason, Denzel explains it very well, the reason that we know it's in the floor is because he cannot lift his eye. He cannot look up. So what happens is there's a muscle that runs along the floor of the orbit and attaches to the eyeball. That muscle causes the eye to drop down. So when I go like this, that's the muscle on the floor. Then there's one up above, and that raises the eye when you look up. Well, if that lower one gets trapped in the fracture and swells and gets inflamed, which it does, it entraps that muscle. So when the upper muscle goes to raise the eyeball, it can't because it's tethered. It's like an anchor. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
So
That's what's happened to him.
So do those two, the upper and the lower, work sort of like a bicep and a tricep?
Yes.
So when the upper
Raises, this one
has to
relaxes when
relax, and
when
vice
this one
versa.
contracts and this one relaxes. So they are
They're not independent. Yeah.
No. And you have actually, each globe has 6 muscles that operate it. So these are only 2 of those 6.
Wow.
But this one is called an entrapment syndrome, and it's classic. In fact, there's a study in the National Institutes of Health, a 10-year period, and there were 350,000 of these in the United States alone. So that's about 35,000 per year. When you think about that, that's quite a common injury for one of these entrapments, and breaking of the floor of the orbit. So when Jamie punched him in the eye, the eyeball did not burst, but it caused breakage of the floor of the socket. Now the problem with that is that not only can he not raise his eye, but he'll get double vision even when the eyes are not moving and you're trying to focus. He can't focus that eye correctly on that side, so he'll get double vision. He also gets muscle weakness in the ocular muscles because they're not being able to operate when this eye is stationary like it is. You can get bradycardia, which is slowness of the heart. The stress of the situation causes the heart to slow down. Bleeding on the brain and death. You can die from this kind of an injury. So it's not insignificant. I'm hopeful that that's not going to happen, but it is a significant injury. And if somebody gets a blow like that, they should go to an emergency room with it. That's my take-home message. Another thing is that last time I suggested that when Claire was going through her medical box that she might be looking for aconite because that's what she used in season 3 on Rufus, but it turns out that she was looking for laudanum. So I just wanted to correct that. And
because she said that to Jamie, that's where
she said that.
Okay.
The other thing that I noticed, because Antoinette, you talked about the anatomical impossibility of the sexual position for William and Jane, or but also when Jamie and Claire are making love and she's on the table, she drops her knees down and lets her feet dangle. No, that changes the position of the pelvis and it doesn't work when I'm going to put it real bluntly and you can take it out, but if you don't want to hear this, but he'll pop out.
No, that's I somehow I know that. I'm not sure how.
So she'll want to keep her knees up because it tilts the pelvis up and makes sex work.
Yeah. Didn't we have a conversation about something like this when we were all drunk off our heads in Chicago? Why do I remember?
Oh yeah, we had quite a conversation.
No.
But Carmen.
Wait, are you thinking about the anatomical lesson we had in New Orleans?
Yes.
But we also had one in Chicago.
Oh,
I think that was New Orleans.
Where I had
went to your room, right?
Where I got my headlamp out?
Yes.
I'm leaving this.
We're gonna scare everybody.
Stop it. So no, Carmen.
Why? We're grown women. We can talk about anatomy and sex and whatever we want.
Sorry, Carmen, I found what you said fascinating. Let me ask you something.
Sure.
If somebody gets, because I had a victim who got shot in the face, right? And the bullet, the path that the bullet took went through like the side of his eye and came out somewhere up here. It was awful. But can the injury that you are describing in terms of the breakage of the bone, can a gunshot do that as well as a punch?
Probably it wouldn't do it to the floor of the eye, of the bony orbit, but it would damage this side of the bony orbit, and you do have another muscle that operates there. And that muscle, when it goes for this eye, it makes the eye go that way. Okay.
Oh, okay.
This eye follows, but it's the muscle here that pulls this eye. So those two are working together, right? When I go over here, it's this muscle and this muscle that are contracting to cause my eye to go to my right.
Okay.
Okay, so if it gets into this area, it could damage that muscle and the ability to move the eyeball on that side and break this orbit. And the thing of it is that there are other things inside of the bony orbit than just the globe, the eyeball, and the muscles. There's the optic nerve. There are other nerves present. There are arteries and veins that are present there. There's a gland that is present there. And it's got and there's a lot of fat in the bony orbit too. So there's a lot of anatomy to the structure of the
okay. I'll have to have another look at the medical report. I might have to go back to the grand jury and add a charge of aggravated.
If you want to send me some information on it, I can comment on it.
Okay. So. Yeah, I might want to add a charge, an aggravated battery charge. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and it's disfiguring,
I'll have to look and see what I can send you. I might have to redact some stuff, but yeah. Sorry about that digression, but when you said it, it just reminded me of that. So I just wanted to ask you before I forgot.
Can I add one more thing before we move on?
Yeah.
So to give you an idea, atmospheric pressure at sea level is not quite 15 pounds per square inch. Inside of your tires, the pressure is usually between 28 and 36, somewhere around there. The eyeball requires over 130 pounds per square inch in order to burst it. That gives you an idea of how tough it is. It's not only that it's filled with fluid, but it also has a very, very thick fibrous capsule around it, which keeps it from bursting. So it's made to protect it's a protective mechanism for the eye.
Wow. Completely fascinating.
It is. The eye is an elegant organ. It really is.
Lawyerly. My question was, does Jane have any rights with the buggery and the brothels, Lord John Gray's commission, and being a prisoner?
Rights in the brothel? No. Prostitutes didn't have rights. I mean, women barely had rights in those times. True, yeah. Much more a prostitute. They're bought and sold. So whatever it is the buyer wants, that is what the prostitute has to deliver. Because remember, most of the times, if these girls were not in the brothel, they would be out on the street somewhere or in workhouses or somewhere. Well, in England, they'd be in workhouses. I'm not sure if they had workhouses in the colonies, but that they had no choice. So there's no choice about what they wanted to do, which is why Arabella ended up doing what she eventually did, which I won't say because we don't know that yet. Well, I mean, Lord John Gray's commission, remember, once you buy a commission, you get into the army. Your commission, even though he has resigned his commission, he can always be recommissioned. It's like when soldiers are recalled into active service, you know? So you don't get out all the way completely, even if you retire. You can always be called back into active service. And so that there wasn't anything weird about that. I do I think I saw a comment online where people were saying, but why is William so upset? Because um because even though Jamie is his father, he was a child of the marriage of the old guy that died.
Yeah.
And
Ellesmere.
Geneva.
Ellesmere.
And so legally, he is Lord Ellesmere.
Yeah.
You
We
know.
talked about this last week a little bit.
Oh, when I was there. Yeah. So he is Lord Ellesmere. So there's no question about the legality of it. But of course, what William is struggling with is not the legality of it.
Yeah.
It is the dishonor of it. Well, I mean, there's always protocol in terms of how you treat prisoners of war, you know, and there are different rules of engagement in how prisoners of war are to be treated. Most enemy combatants, when they are captured, they provide their name, their rank, and their serial number, and that's it. I mean, in modern times. Back in those days, their name and maybe their regiment, but they were supposed to be treated in a particular way. You know, they were not to be beaten, they were not to be tortured, that kind of thing. But if you are a spy, then all the rules go out the window and you could be hung as a spy without trial. That's why Lord John was eager not to be thought of as a spy, because all the normal protocol in terms of how you treat prisoners of war would not apply to somebody who is caught as a spy, especially in a time of war. You know, this is not espionage when everything is peaceful and you're trying to just learn secrets. You know, this is a time of war where information that a spy gathers and passes on could mean the difference between winning or losing a major battle. So, yeah. So he doesn't want to be thought of as a spy. Certainly not.
Interesting. Thank you for that, both of you. I wanted to say that the woman who played Jane is named Sylvia Presente, and she's half English and half Italian. I thought that was interesting. Then Adam Jackson Smith played Captain Harkness, and Anthony Howell played Colonel Watson Smith.
I thought it was interesting that, well, first of all, Charles Gray is a real historical figure, and Paoli did happen. Now, they called it Paoli in this episode, but it's in Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania, they call it Paoli. So it's phonetically like it is spoken phonetically like it's written. And there were 53 men that died from being stabbed with bayonets. And then about 220 men were taken prisoners. So it was a significant loss for the rebels and the Americans. And I think I can understand why they would be a little bit sensitive about that historically. You know, when they wanted to hang him right there on the spot because he was just because he was a distant cousin to Charles Gray. Yeah. That's all.
That's good. Yeah, thank you. Let's go to favorite lines.
I have lots of favorite lines.
Hey, you go first.
Lord John, you are not misled, but you are wrong. Love that. Love that. That said so much.
Is that from the book?
I don't know where it was from. It might have been from Tony's pen, but it was a great line.
I don't remember it in the book.
I don't remember
that
it
way.
Me either. No.
You are
It
not
might have been
missing it.
hers.
Yeah.
It was really a good line. I
It
agree.
was, yeah. I love, the only thing I loved about that George Washington scene is when he talks about the contentious shopkeeping sons of bitches.
Some things never change.
Yep.
Shopkeeping sons of bitches. I said, damn, George, tell us how you really feel.
He apparently really did say something like that too. I don't remember where I've read it, but
I liked it when the scene and the lines when Jamie says, "We are not finished here, sir." And Lord John says, "No, we are not." Does he say sir?
no.
No, we are not. And then walks away. And I'm not bloody sorry. Loved that.
Me too. So I liked when Claire said to William after he was inquiring about, what happened between Jamie and his mother, Claire says, "I am still your stepmother, regardless of the situation." I really like that line, not because the words are particularly assembled in a profound way, but because she was pointing out to him it wouldn't matter whether she was still married to Lord John or she's married to Jamie. She still is, either way, she's his stepmother. And she will remain that way, at least as far as she is concerned. And I really like that because she's telling him, she's telling him that she's there for him. She is his stepmother and she will help him. I also like Rachel's line. "So now thee has doomed thy kinsman, repudiated thy father, and caused me to betray my principles. What next?" I think that's in the book. I think that's in the book, but I think that's so well said. And it's so like her, I mean, she's just this, her speech is very plain and it's very well, she's well spoken. I like her intelligence.
I liked when Jamie and William had their encounter by the tree, and does William say he's that Jamie's a bastard or you'll see him in hell or something, and Jamie says, "No doubt." That was so Jamie. and the way that Sam delivered it with that dry humor was perfect. No doubt.
I think he says, "God damn you to hell, sir. God damn you to hell." He says, "No doubt." Kind of like, "No doubt. I said pick up your room and get it done." That was the feeling behind that. Like, say what you like, but do what I say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's two that I have for Lord John. I liked it when he said, "Lord John." Just telling them several times, how he should be addressed, and they kept messing it up. He was like, "Lord John." He had it with him. And then the other one that he says to Denzel is, "My wife? Oh, Claire isn't my wife anymore. Jamie Fraser isn't dead. He's the one that hit me, and I was asking for it." I love the way he delivered that line. Now, I did not think he was being, flippant or anything. I just think that he was getting pleasure out of that situation.
I guess
he made
so.
a mess of stuff.
Yeah, he seemed almost like drunk. And I know in the book they feed him a bunch of alcohol.
Yeah.
But maybe that happened in the show and we didn't see it, but he did seem kind of drunk.
Little euphoric.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just endorphins and adrenaline.
I thought, even though it wasn't, I don't think it was in the book, but Claire says the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, that's important because the title card shows an ancient apple tree, and the apple falls on the ground, and it's a reference to something that we'll get, I want to come back to with the theme. But I think it's an important comment that she makes, because I think it's telling the audience relaying some important information that the episode is trying to portray.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, let's do standouts.
Ooh. Charles Vandervaart was a standout for me. I thought he did exceptionally well. The Jamie and Claire scenes and how cleverly it was done, moving them from room to room, that was definitely a standout. And David, I really liked how David played Lord John in this episode. I really did, except for his pasty, vampire-ish face. I really thought that he really did a good job.
Yeah.
The overall flow and pace, I think the director and the writer were both on their A game in this episode. So those were my standouts.
Okay, so my standouts, Kat and Sam. Charles is probably the biggest one for me also. Izzy, I think she does an amazing job as Rachel. Just her facial expressions. She's really talented. And I wanted to mention Sylvia as Jane. I thought she did a great job. And Adam Jackson Smith as Harkness. I thought he did a good job too. Sorry, Carmen. And then
Okay.
Tony for the writing and Lisa for the directing.
Yeah.
Those were my standouts.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to say, I don't mention Izzy because she's just so consistently good. I don't think she has put a foot wrong since she joined the show. And she must be a tiny little thing because she makes Ian look like he has some height and stature to him when they're standing side by side. So I'm saying she must be a tiny little thing. But
You
she
know
is so
what?
consistently good.
I looked up his height. Did I not write that down? I'll look it up real quick. But Ian is, I think John Bell's something like 5'10", and she's 5'4". So she
No,
is.
that's my height.
No,
Well,
she looks
I
smaller
used
than
to be
that.
5'4".
She looks smaller than that because I'm allegedly 5'4".
She does look smaller than that. I
She's
agree.
5'5".
Who?
Who
is
is
5'5"?
She's 5'5". Let me look up John Bell again.
No, that's not right.
Oh, you said Izzy is, I'm sorry. Who's
Izzy is
5'5"?
5'5".
Okay.
John Bell's 5'9".
Oh, so they must be
Yes.
having him, maybe they have him standing on a box.
Well,
to
when they
make
were
him.
sitting on the horse, that was my point. He's kind of, reaching around her, trying to see over her to do the horse. It wasn't quite the same as like Sam being taller than Katrina, on the horse. And with much longer arms and all that.
Yeah.
I still see a lot of chemistry between Izzy and Charles.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
I thought that was a good scene with when he gets released, and then they have that moment where they just look at each other in that knowing way. Rachel and Ian kind of like, are you okay? I'm okay. Okay.
Yeah, I still see the link between them. It might
No,
not be
there's
as
definitely a link.
busy and fiery,
Yeah.
but I think us in Outlander, we want everybody to have that fizz and fire that Jamie and Claire have, and it's just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because that that between them is lightning in a bottle. That's not something that is easily replicated.
It's true.
Much as the showrunners have tried.
Yeah. Charles is 6'1". Carmen, your standouts.
Yeah. So I would say that Sam, he had much more part to play in this episode than Claire did, even though I thought in their scene together, they held their own perfectly between the two of them. But I thought his facial expressions, I thought his delivery, I thought his timing, I thought his physicality that he portrayed in the different scenes, I just thought he did a terrific job. I really did. It was the Sam that we have respected for years now, and enjoyed his performance, and he really put it out there in this particular episode. So kudos to him. David, I just like the way he's portraying Lord John. Charles, except for his teeth, I'm good. Izzy, one of the things that I like about her so much are those eyebrows. When she talks, they look like two beautiful arches on her face. And she delivers her lines with such frankness and honesty, but those eyes are kind of, they're kind of a bit of a tease, I think. And that may be what you're noticing, Courtney, between her and Charles. And then
he's noticing. I'll tell you that much. Let's do our big themes.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I'm not even sure if I noticed a big theme, but I noticed I came away with, this episode, one of the things I said to myself, this episode could have also been named Of Lost Things, like in season 3, because there was so much loss in this episode, particularly on the part of Lord John Grey, and also on the part of Jamie and Lord John Grey in terms of the fracturing of that relationship. Because there was an innocence in the relationship between Jamie and Lord John Grey, because Jamie knew who Lord John was and his tendencies, as he said. And after that first initial almost crossing of the line in Ardsmuir, Lord John has kept that line that has allowed them, because of Jamie's traumatic past with Black Jack,
which Lord John does not know about.
Exactly, to maintain that relationship. And of course, that innocence is irretrievably gone when Lord John says that line about "we are both fucking you." That exploded something in Jamie's brain.
Yeah.
And I think I read online and people say, "Oh, Jamie was too harsh. Why is he so mad?" They don't understand the dynamics, or they're not understanding who Jamie is and how his experiences have shaped him, for that particular line to have the significance in him. So I saw the mourning in Lord John and Jamie of the loss of that innocence. Yes, they might reconcile and, become cordial again, but they will never again have that innocence. William, William has literally lost himself. He has literally lost himself. He does not know who he is. And now he has to embark on a journey to find out who he is. I don't think he even feels comfortable calling himself William. So he has lost his entire identity, which is why I found that scene with him looking into the mirror so poignant. So my theme that I came away with is of lost things. And there was a line, I think, in the previous episode that says some things can't be mended. So some losses can't be made up for. Once it's lost, it's lost. And it's not a matter of trying to get it back. It's mourning, trying to heal and move on. And so we'll see if these characters manage to heal and move on. So that's the theme I came away with.
I like it. I was thinking too, when you're saying that about the line with Lord John, it really, Claire's the only person who held that about Lord John. Like, saw he's in love with him, saw his unguarded looks sometimes. Jamie didn't see that, apparently.
But he knows.
He knows, but it was kept in the unconscious.
Exactly, the innocence.
But Claire, it was not unconscious for Claire.
No, she said that when he was sick with measles and blood of my blood.
Yeah.
She told him she knew how he felt about Jamie.
Yeah, but she has held that, she's allowed that to be unconscious for Jamie so he can be friends with Lord John, who has his son. But she has been aware of it the entire time and held that. And now, like you said, it's just out there.
Yeah.
So my big theme, I had several. Life can get really messy. Is one. Big family secrets cause problems. Almost always. They do, because they don't stay secret. People can't handle the psychological strain, or something happens and they come out, and it almost always causes problems. And then just the other piece is, William, like you said, is going through so much loss, and it's so important that his three parents, Lord John, Jamie, and Claire, all stay with him through this and love him through this. It's the most probably critical time in all of their relationships.
If he will let them.
If he will let them, but even if he won't let them, sometimes when your kids push you away is when they need you the most. And those guys have to stay. They still have to show up for him. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, you both covered one of my things that I saw in that, in a sort of a nutshell, is that human relationships are fragile and they're fraught with difficulties, because shit happens. You know, and you have all these plans laid out, you know, you think this is going in a certain direction, and then you'll get a curved ball, and it's like, okay, well, now how do you deal with this, you know, and how are you going to manage it? And I think one of the things that Diana tries to teach through her books is that she's trying to show people how they can deal with these kinds of difficulties that arise in people's lives. I mean, if you look at her books, the whole gamut of the human condition is expressed in some form or another in the different relationships in her books. And you know, she tries to show people how they can heal from that and move forward and still have some dignity about themselves and find some purpose in life for which they can attach themselves to. So I think that's really sort of reiterating what you both have said in my own words. But the other one that I think was obvious and that they were trying to point out is the similarities between William and not Sam, Jamie. Not physically so similar, but in their personalities, especially Jamie as a young man, is very similar to the way that William is now. Temper, they have a flash temper, passionate men. Honor is very important to them. They're quite blunt in the way that they speak to people. And they have a certain impulsiveness. Now, Jamie has tempered his as he's gotten older, but when he was younger, he was very impulsive in the books, you know, that Virgins, you know, and those kinds of books where Diana has revealed him at a younger age. He had impulsiveness was part of his playbook. And that's true of William too. So, you know, I think sometimes in American TV, they hit us over the head with things. And so the apple falling from the tree and then Claire saying the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. They're trying to get us to acknowledge the similarities between a man and his son, in this case, Jamie and William. So those are my two big themes from it.
Okay, can I just revisit the whole theme of loss? I was reading a comment online on Threads, and some people were expressing, why is Lord John Gray so angry? You know, what is the source of this tremendous anger that he's feeling? And I think that he has lost a lot in everything that has happened. Remember the morning after talk? And he was contemplating having some measure of happiness in some kind of relationship with Claire as his wife. He could see a future for them where they could have some measure of happiness that he hasn't had, probably never.
Yeah.
You know? And so that is a tremendous loss. That was just ripped away when Jamie just strode back in and took over. And also, he's lost his son.
Yeah.
He has lost William. And it is going to take a hell of a lot to repair that and to get William back. He probably never will get him back in the way that he had him before. So it is understandable why he would want to lash out and hurt Jamie with that particular line, because whose fault is it that he's suffering all this loss? Bloody Jamie. You know?
Well, don't you also think that he has anger about his lot, that he could have anger about his lot in life? Because nothing is making his life easy in the carriage. You know, he said, oh, I do know what who you love is a crime. I know what that feels like, and I know what that's like. You know, at no fault of his own. I mean, you know, he was born this way, and science backs that up, by the way. I'm sure I'm going to get flack for that.
Let them flack away.
Exactly. Slack it
but
up,
that's what
baby.
science indicates, is that people are born with their inclinations, and so I think the unfairness of society, and that he has to remain hidden.
Yeah.
So much of his life has to remain hidden from the world, and that he has to pretend he's something that he's not. Not that has to cause internal distress.
And the only glimmer of when he's talking about Manok, in that morning after scene, that's the only time, in secret, surreptitiously, hidden away from the world, that he can have some semblance of contentment, and his form of happiness snatched in time. So that's why I think the loss of a potential future with Claire, where he could see himself having some measure of normal.
She brings legitimacy to him.
Exactly. Well, so I think that's a tremendous loss.
And he can be completely open about who he is with her.
Yes.
Exactly.
Even
and then to the rest of the world, they present themselves as though they are a typical couple.
Exactly.
So it's a perfect solution for him.
He hasn't probably been able to tell anybody about Manok, but he could tell her. And he could feel accepted by her, and she had compassion for him. I definitely think that he has a big loss when Jamie came back. I mean, obviously he was shocked and glad, but I do think that it's kind of like it's all gone to shit for him.
Yeah. Damn. Why didn't you stay
physically as well as emotionally?
Yeah. I had a couple comments. One is, I remembered Antoinette. Claire does not slap him when he asks about the buggery. She slaps him when he says, "You think with your body, you always have."
Oh, that's right. You're right. I think I'm the one that said that. That I reiterated that she slapped him when he said, "Did he bugger you?"
Yeah, no, that's not when he did, because that's what I liked. She didn't respond like over the top. It was like, oh God, like, you don't get it. Like, it wasn't like, you're such a idiot from the past, like, it wasn't that Claire. It was like, just disappointment. But
she probably was disappointed in his response.
Totally. And that's understandable. And his response is understandable. Because he doesn't know. The other piece is that I read the apple falling from the tree as an Adam and Eve reference.
And interesting.
The same as the title, Carnal Knowledge, ties in with the Adam and Eve reference. So I think it could be both, I'm sure it was both.
Yeah. But symbols often are multi-representative.
Yeah, so, I mean, okay, so Claire's the forbidden fruit, carnal knowledge. He's had carnal knowledge of Jamie's, if they're Adam and Eve. Who's Lord John's the snake? I don't know. It's there's definite some kind of alliteration there, in my opinion. Somebody like Linda will probably have it all tell us exactly what that is. But that's the way I saw that when I saw it. I wanted to just mention a couple things, and one is, I told you guys about it, but
yes, I'm going to go to Barnes and Noble.
It's not anything earth-shattering, but it's kind of fun. On the last page, where are we? Do you see us?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, there we are.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. That's us.
that's us, you
In
guys. So
Yola.
we are in the official. This is the Scots magazine, which is supposedly the oldest publication in the world or something.
Exactly
But
4 years ago. It was
yeah,
2020,
that was
2019, 2020.
January 2020.
Mhm.
Yep,
Yeah.
Wow.
that
So
picture
five
of
years
us.
ago, 5 years ago next month.
Yeah. So
Wow, that
that this you
seems
can
like a
get it
lifetime
at
ago.
Barnes and Noble, or
I'm
you
gonna
can
go
get
get
it.
it. I'm gonna go get it because I'm
Yeah,
going
I
out.
mean it's just fun to have. So this came out in November. So
Who
Mhm.
is the what magazine is it?
it's called it's like an extra, like a
A special edition.
But
special
who's
edition.
putting it
Thank
out?
you. The Scots magazine.
The Scots
So
magazine.
I mean, it's from Scotland in the UK. This woman had, contacted me over the summer, and uh, she asked me a bunch of questions. What she put in there is just a portion of what we talked about, but it's what fit what she needed, and that was great. So that, and then yeah, so I came down with a little bug last week, but
Mhm.
I wanted to tell you guys that for Christmas, normally in our family, it's like, what do you want for Christmas? And you come up with some ideas. I'm not that much of a thing person. I'm just not. I like experiences. And I thought about what I really wanted for Christmas, and I told Billy, I was like, you know what I really want for Christmas? I want to go to New York City and see Laura Donnelly in the hills of California. And that's what I did. I just got back last night. That's why I'm tired. So I
Oh,
went there Thursday night.
congratulations.
Yeah, and I saw the play on Saturday night.
Mhm.
It was really good. I didn't like it as much as The Ferryman,
Mhm.
but it was really well done. Same combo: Jez Butterworth,
Mhm.
Sam Mendes, Laura Donnelly, and then a great cast. Um, and then afterward, I got to talk to her for just a little bit at the stage door line.
Oh, neat.
And then I went over to Sardi's, which is like a theater, restaurant where you can go before or after theater. And turns out the whole cast went over there it was their last, I mean, they closed the play yesterday.
Oh wow.
The run of that play is over. That's why I
Oh,
wanted to go, because
cool.
she's no longer, I don't know, the Ferryman continued for quite a while without
Mhm.
the original cast. I'm not sure they're extending the run of this one.
Mhm.
But anyway, the main thing that I was able to ask her was what's next. And she's 40. She's accomplished so much for a 40-year-old, in my opinion.
That's not very old.
No, but she has two kids who are, I mean, they must be like 7 and 9-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But she said something like, I'm gonna have a really, really long sleep. That's the only thing I know. So I was like,
Good for her.
yeah, when I saw her again, I said, well, enjoy your long sleep.
Mhm.
So and then I came back yesterday. It was really fun, and that was my Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Yeah,
Wow.
thank
Courtney.
you. Yeah.
That's a wonderful
Wonderful.
gift, and it was kind of Billy to indulge
Yeah.
you in that and make it happen.
Well, and
You
take
know?
care of everything here
Yeah,
a while so I
Beautiful.
could
that's what I
go.
mean.
Yeah,
Somebody has to
exactly.
keep the home fires lit, right?
Exactly. So it was really fun. And
Good.
the city was just decked out for Christmas.
Oh,
It was
wow.
so I don't know, it's
Festive
just
and
so great. I love New York City. The food was
Mhm.
amazing.
oh,
The
yeah.
Christmas decorations, people everywhere. I mean, it was just really, really fun.
Yeah, New York is fun at Christmas time.
Yeah.
My phone is
Well,
on 9% battery, so
okay, well, let's say our
before it
goodbyes before we just
Okay.
disappear.
have a wonderful Christmas.
You
Happy
too.
holidays, you ladies, and the end of a year that
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
no, I
My
didn't mean to go there actually.
no,
but
let's
I'm
not
glad
no.
the year is coming
let's
to
not talk about it.
Ladies,
Amen.
take care of yourself.
I
Stay
will.
home on
Okay.
New Year's Eve.
Oh no, we are not. No, no, no. We're gonna be staying home and drinking. Me and the girls
And
will be
not
drinking.
driving.
Yeah,
Okay.
me and the
Not
girls will be
driving.
at
Yeah.
home
Take care of
drinking.
yourself and your families.
Yeah.
Very
You too,
important.
you guys.
Okay. Love you guys.
Love you
And
guys. Mwah.
thanks for
Take
doing
care.
this tonight.
You
Okay.
bet. Love
Okay.
you to death, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.